BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Amy Canavan and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday the 24th of April. And someone's keen on a Scotland call-up.
It's definitely an ambition from a young age. I think that's any player that wants to play football, wants to represent their country, and it's obviously something that would be unbelievable.
Can Simon Murray force his way into Steve Clarke's thoughts? Elsewhere, there's a new arrival at Ibrox.
Chief Executive Patrick Stewart announced earlier this season there would be a root and branch review of all aspects of the club. The man he wants to help implement some of this is 51-year-old Kevin Thelwell.
Kevin Thelwell will become Rangers' new sporting director in the summer. Plus, what will the lower leagues offer up this weekend, kicking off on Friday?
We're more than capable of still getting the points that we look for, we desire. We'll be ready to go on Friday night and stick together, pull together, let's get ourselves over that line.
Will Falkirk finally be crowned champions, or will it go down to the wire?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Lots to discuss this morning in the company of A View from the Terrace presenter Craig Telfer and Hibernian assistant and former defender Joelle Murray. And let's start with Simon Murray, the Dundee striker, speaking earlier this week of his ambitions to play for Scotland. Quite the campaign has been building actually over the last few days, maybe even the last few weeks, hence why this question came around for Simon Murray on Monday. There's a couple of friendlies coming up in June. Craig, will the Dundee man soon be known as Scotland's Simon Murray?
No, I feel bad because the last time Joelle and I were on this podcast, we were talking about Simon Murray and his aspirations for Scotland. I feel a bit bad because I said I didn't fancy him then, and I'm saying again that I don't fancy him for Scotland now. And I love Simon Murray. I think he's such a likeable guy, and the way he plays football, the enthusiasm and gusto you see from him on the football pitch, that's something that fans really like seeing and really endear themselves to. However, I just think at this stage of his career, it's not the right. I don't think it's the right move for Scotland. I think we should be looking at these friendlies to tipple in guys like Lennon Miller, give Tommy Conway a shot, get him scoring goals for Scotland. He's part of the future, and I don't think Simon Murray is. And it's not because of anything that Simon Murray's his personality or anything like that. It's just because I think at this stage of his career, it's not perhaps the right move for either party.
Yeah, he is 33 now. Do you think, Joelle, and maybe in years gone by, we should have perhaps looked at him as the boat being missed on Simon Murray? Will he be Scotland's forgotten man? I think I saw that headline a few days ago as well.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely don't think age is on his side, and I think Craig's 100% right in terms of using these friendlies in June to kind of bed in youthfulness and bring that kind of younger generation in to give them a bit of experience. And it's a shame because I think I read somewhere that Simon Murray said he could probably add something to the national team squad, and I don't think there's no denying that, but definitely I think age isn't on his side, and I think the purpose of these camps, the friendlies upcoming, should be to kind of bleed in new youthful players with a kind of longevity, a sustainability in mind.
I am completely playing devil's advocate and forcing this upon you, given you both admit that you were talking about him a few weeks ago. Maybe this campaign started through the peer review, but he did say that he thinks he can add something different, Craig. He is prolific. You know, we don't actually have that prolific striker. He's been continually hitting 20 goals the last few seasons, so it is something that we're lacking, isn't it?
Oh, totally. I totally agree. I can see the arguments for it because he is doing very well in a underwhelming Dundee side, and he has been really good actually since actually moving to Ross County from Queen's Park. He really is having a bit of an Indian summer. However, and again repeating myself from the point I made last time, but I think there's a different degrees of pressure that come with being a football player, and I think that it's one thing you maybe look at guys like Lauren Shanklin and Kevin Nisbet, who might also be in that conversation to come into these summer camps. They're playing for bigger clubs where there's greater expectations and more pressure that comes with that. And Simon Murray's not. It's one thing to do well with a team like Dundee, and that's not being disrespectful to Dundee, but it's different when you're playing for clubs slightly higher up the food chain. And just these are all the factors why I just think that it's not the right move to get Murray in. And like I say, I love him as a player, love watching him, and he's having a great season. But I just think that Scotland should be looking elsewhere.
Are you telling me you don't want a guy who does like a full-on Emmanuel Adebayor and races the length of the pitch to celebrate with his fans?
There is nothing I would like to see more than Simon Murray on his knees sliding in front of the Iceland fans at Hampden. I just can't see it happening.
I think this is a little bit of a moot point, but just wrapping it up then, you are talking about the pressures, Craig, and you're right. Joelle, it's first and foremost, and Simon Murray did say this as well, his first job is to make sure Dundee stay in the Premiership, stay in the division. Their post-split fixtures obviously kick off this Saturday. It's a tricky trip to Tynecastle. Do you see Dundee staying up? Do you see them perhaps having to go through the playoffs? Where do you think they can finish through this season?
Yeah, I think they've got the quality of players to keep them up. I think Tony Docherty is a manager, very experienced manager. I truly believe that they can stay up, not just through Simon Murray's goals, but I think the quality in behind as well. I think there's other teams potentially in more dangerous positions underperforming without the quality that Dundee have.
Right then, should Murray's Dundee remain in the Scottish Premiership, they'll be welcoming Kevin Thelwell to Dens Park a few times next season after the Everton Director of Football was announced last night as Rangers' new sporting director. Chief Executive Patrick Stewart announced earlier this season that an appointment in this position would be a priority, Joelle, and it's certainly a role that we're seeing a lot of clubs put more emphasis on and prioritise. Hibs, of course, with Malky Mackay in that form. You see it up close and the impact that can have. What influence will Thelwell have at Ibrox?
I think he'll have a big influence. I think he's got a big task on his hand. There's no denying that. He'll be coming into the job in the summer and looking to hit the ground running, trying to address a few issues that are currently there. But I think for me, there's a lot of talking points around that role in football. Is it required? Is it not required? And I think talking from experience, especially at Hibs, you touched upon Malky Mackay. I think seeing close up firsthand what he's done in a short space of time has been absolutely magnificent. And I think for me, just really solidifies the reason why these roles can be so important and crucial at a football club.
As a fan, it's interesting to hear that though, Craig, isn't it? Because I think we can all look at these sort of appointments being made and you're like, right, what direct impact are they actually having? But if folks in the club, and Joelle's not the only one to do this, speak so highly of the importance, it does give you a little bit of hope.
I think so. I think Joelle's right. It's a position that Rangers have needed to address for a while now. They've got into a bad habit of like hiring a manager, sacking him in 18 months, and then with that comes with just a churn of players. One manager wants to sign a particular profile of player, the new manager comes in, and then some of these players are surplus to requirements. On top of that, Rangers have got into a bad habit of spending a lot of money on pretty mediocre players. You think of guys like Sam Lammers and like Danilo, a lot of money spent on these guys for very little return. On top of that, their player trading has been quite bad, and it's like guys like Alfredo Morelos and Ryan Kent go for nothing. Guys who could have potentially made like 25, 30 million pounds given how well they'd done at Rangers. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And on top of that as well, just for a club of Rangers size, they've just been a bit directionless and a bit shiftless for a while. And I think that they will always be looking across the other side of the city to see how Celtic are doing. And Celtic seem to be particularly well run. They've got their player trading model set up very well. And they understand where they are in the food chain. You don't need to buy guys cheaply and sell them on for a big price. Rangers perhaps looking at them quite enviously and seeing that gap between the sides increasing. So Thelwell's got a big job in his hands to I think look at every avenue of the club in terms of their manager appointments, their player trading, how their strategies like on and off the pitch. So he's got a big job in his hands.
Yeah, this is the first major move by Patrick Stewart, and it comes at a time that the club first officially confirmed that they are in negotiations with American investors, including the San Francisco 49ers, about a possible takeover of the club, and there'll be more of that in the near future on the podcast. But for now, Joelle, as Craig sort of alludes to there, they will say he is confident of bringing around real progress to the club, and given the way that this season in particular is panning out, and already, by this stage it is over and done with, it needs to be real progress, but it needs to be at real speed too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think any Rangers fan, the supporters base in general, will kind of allow for a lengthy process. I think Thelwell's got a good CV. He's worked at good clubs down south and across in America, so he's got a good track record. So I think they'll be hoping that he can hit the ground running. There's no doubt about that. And I think first and foremost, a club like Rangers needs stability. I think you can see from the season they've had, the recruitment, there's been many people involved in many decisions, different types of players coming in, players that have come in and hardly played. And I think the Rangers fans will be hoping that he brings that stability, that vision and that direction that they've lacked for a long, long time now.
It's funny what you're saying there, because that for what he's looking to do, it feels like this needs a lot of time to embed these processes and get them right. However, a club like Rangers, you just simply do not get the time. So hitting the ground running, I think that's perhaps a bit of an understatement, what Rangers are looking for from Thelwell when he gets his feet under the desk.
Yeah, just finally, and talking about actually like good business, elsewhere in the top flight yesterday, St Mirren's striker Tuoso Olasanya has joined Houston Dynamo in the MLS for a handsome fee. Stephen Robinson calling it terrific business for the Buddies. Given that he was out of contract in the summer, Craig, managing to pull in a 6-figure fee, should Rangers perhaps look closer to home?
They could have done, yeah. I think that's something that that Rangers should be looking to. There's a lot of talent in the Scottish Premiership. I think that, for instance, getting Lyle Cameron on a pre-contract from Dundee, I think that's a good move. That's a player I've always liked watching. Would have Sanya have improved Rangers? Perhaps. He's certainly given them a bit more.
The model, I must say.
Model, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like I say, there are some good players at home, but it's being smart with your trading. And I think if you'd have said that Rangers were paying a 6-figure fee for a guy whose contract was up in a couple of weeks, maybe that's not the best start for Thelwell to get on. But I know what you mean. There are good players in Scotland who could benefit Rangers.
Absolutely, and there's plenty of good players in the Championship, so let's dip on down there now. I know, Craig, this is what we've got you on for. The drama is endless in the second tier, and let us start with Falkirk, who have a second chance to all but clinch the title tomorrow night against Partick Thistle, live on BBC Scotland. Now, Craig, Falkirk looked a shoo-in just a matter of weeks ago. Champagne and champion t-shirts were out at Somerset Park just a matter of Fridays ago when we were down there, but after a few weeks of wee wobbles, is it a little bit squeaky bum time now?
Falkirk have got into a bit of a bad habit over the past couple of games there of chucking away games late on. They did it against Livingston, an 88th winner scored by Andrew Shinney. They did it against Ayr United, the game you were at there, when Ethan Walker scored an injury time equaliser. And then they did it at the weekend against Wraith Rovers, where they were 1-0 up until the 88th minute, then collapsed with Wraith Rovers scoring 3 goals. So it's a bit of a bad habit and it's a bit unfortunate. However, when you think of earlier in the season when Falkirk amassed that big lead at the top of the table, you'd almost say that's an insurance policy. So when these wobbles do happen, you've still got that space and that distance. And it's not just the points. They've got a fantastic goal difference as well over Livingston. So I can see Falkirk this game against Partick Thistle. They've done well against Thistle earlier in the season. Thistle themselves aren't in particularly good form. They've had a presentable run of fixtures that they haven't been able to take advantage of. And then even if Falkirk do drop points, they go into the final of the game this season against Hamilton Academical, who are already relegated. So if for whatever reason it's not this weekend, I can see it going down to the final season, but I can't see anything other than a Falkirk title win here.
You mentioned Thistle there, and you're right to do so, because Falkirk's defeat to Wraith last week has a real impact on Thistle. It's moved Wraith level on points, although Thistle are still there on goal difference in that fourth and final spot. But Mark Wilson and Brian Graham really cannot afford to not finish in the playoffs, given that Chris Doolan, when he was dismissed, it was because the club were in fourth. They had a much healthier cushion in fourth. I think it was 6 points over Wraith Rovers at the time. There is a bounty of pressure mounting on the two of them as well. And I know there's a lot of noise going on about who perhaps will take on the Thistle job. But if either of them have really any ambitions, they have to make sure that they finish in the playoffs.
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because it's all very well when you're absolutely right what you say. When Chris Doolan was let go, and then when Graham takes the job, and he was quite critical of Doolan. I think he said things about the players weren't fit enough, and so then, well, if the players are fit now under your watch, then why are they not winning the games? Why have Wraith Rovers been allowed to catch up with you? So it doesn't. I don't think if Graham does have ambitions of the job, this certainly doesn't help. And I think with Ian Barraclough coming in as Partick Thistle's new sporting director, director of football. You know, this podcast is all just about senior figures in football. But if he's coming in, I think that he's probably coming there. I'm not sure what his relationship is like with Brian Graham, but he comes in almost like with a blank slate to work with. And I don't know if it's in the club's best interest to hire someone who is external to the club. But yeah, big couple of games coming up for Thistle as well, because if they lose this, and say Wraith Rovers were able to overtake them, it does feel like a bit of a total wasted season for Thistle.
Yeah, very much. A lot of folks' favourites for the Championship title at the beginning of the campaign, given the squad that they'd sort of built up. Craig touched on it there, Joelle. Hamilton Accies. As it stands right now, it's just the madness continues. They are relegated. They have now submitted their appeal over their 15 points deduction. It could end up being a real mess at the bottom, because there's the belief that this inquiry will be judged before the end of the season. So if it's successful, who knows what could happen. But when there is so much going on behind the scenes, Joelle, and you know, a lot of players say that, you know, we do switch off to it and we try not to focus on it, but when it has such an impact like this Aki's point deduction has, just how disheartening is it, or will it be for the players to even get up and get to training, to be honest with you?
Yeah, disheartening, disruptive, and unnecessary distraction for the players. And you're right, as players, we would always say, like, as soon as we step over the white line, the full focus is on the game. But this is something that could potentially be, for a lot of the boys, a lifestyle change. The difference in income between where they are and where they could be. I think there's so many factors that become a distraction, and subconsciously, consciously, whether you've got it in the forefront of your mind or not, it's unnecessary. It's a distraction that will be in their minds at some point in games, I'd imagine, because there's a lot at stake. And as I say, it could potentially be a massive lifestyle change for a lot of the players.
Yeah, I think there was a few clubs, Craig, that would have thought that they'd been thrown a little bit of a lifeline through this points deduction for Accies, looking at Dunfermline, Queen's Park, but it just sort of puts it back into the sphere again. Maybe that if this, you know, the deduction to be overturned, it is quite something, but it's all very much up in the air right now.
Yeah, I can't see it being overturned. I think that Hamilton, the way they acted to the governing body about the unpaid players and coming out their transfer embargo, they were able to perhaps sign players that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. It's given them a massive advantage over Queen's Park and Dunfermline and Airdrieonians. And I imagine if the appeal is heard, I can't imagine the SPFL overturning it. And it's a real shame. The people I'm thinking of, this is Hamilton supporters. It's the people who work at the club, the coaches, the sort of administrative staff who have had nothing to do with this, but they're the ones likely to be affected. They're the people that could be out of a job. And that the whole club's future's at stake as well. There was reports last week of the club owing about £500,000 in unpaid rent to the owners of New Douglas Park. That's really, really scary stuff. Really, really scary stuff. It's unfathomable sums of money for a club of Hamilton's size. So you just hope this incident can somehow get resolved. Hamilton can start again in League One and just give the club a sure footing and give the fans something they can be proud of supporting and calling their team.
Yeah, completing our reset, perhaps the way to go. Just it would be totally remiss if I didn't touch on what is probably one of the biggest games across the Scottish game this weekend. Only a fool would have suggested that League Two could have been won last weekend. But Peterhead and East Fife, what a title race going down in the fourth tier, Craig.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I think Peterhead could have won it at the weekend there, but they turned in. I was watching the co-manager Jordan Brown's post-match interview. He said it was the worst performance they've turned in years against Elgin City. They were 3-0 down after 20 minutes, ended up losing that match 4-0, whereas East Fife turned in a pretty good performance of their own against Stirling Albion to beat them 2-0. So that means we go to Balmoor on the penultimate day of the season. It's Peterhead versus East Fife, a point between them. And Peterhead win, they win the title. East Fife win, they just need to win their next game and they win the title. So it's really exciting. Two teams who have been really, really good over the course of the campaign. You can see that reflected in the PFA Team of the Year, the players that are up for Player of the Year as well. They're two East Fife and two Peterhead players. So it's a real good game. If I didn't have stuff on the Saturday evening, I would travel to Balmoor to go and see this one, because it must be so exciting if you're a player, and this is something that Joelle will be able to talk about. But if you're in that position when you know that you're just a couple of days away from glory, it must be so exciting. And I don't know how you could really focus on anything else.
That's interesting. So I was going to bring, it would be totally remiss if I didn't bring up Hibs with you here right now, Joelle. But we're going into now the final 5 games of the SWPL. It is ridiculously tight as ever. The tail end of this season has just been, even by recent season standards, like a whole new level. Hibs are back top after a massive 2-0 win on Sunday against Rangers. How do you feel in this moment? Because you're now on the, as you said earlier, on the other side of the white line. If as a player, how would you feel, and how do you feel as Joelle the coach?
Probably still the same emotions, apart from not being able to kind of directly impact anything on pitch, but the emotions are still there. I think continuing to try and kind of keep our feet on the ground. Our motto is just focus on the next game, win the next game, and that's been our motto all season, so it certainly won't change for the next 5 games. But yeah, the girls have done fantastically well to put us in the position that we're currently in. I think the result against Rangers at the weekend was a massive one for more reasons than the points. The points obviously being the main focus, but for us, we wanted to kind of right a few wrongs from the cup final. We knew that was an anomaly. We knew that the gap wasn't that big. So yeah, the points, of course, were the priority on Sunday, but the performance and righting those wrongs was also secondary. But yeah, I think for us, win the next game, focus on the next game, and there's 5 more to go. So hopefully the girls can continue to do that.
You're being very diplomatic and very professional. But I'm going to try and prod a little bit more, because we often even hear, over the last few seasons, Glasgow City speak about it, that when the money's coming in from Rangers and Celtic in the SWPL, was that Glasgow City falling further behind? They've obviously proved that that's not the case. But with the greatest respect, and I'm not sure how you would feel about this, but not many would have picked Hibs to be in this position at the start of the season. So to be where you are right now, there's got to be like a fair bit of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, we are certainly excited, and we know that we've probably punched above our weight, because I think we're probably the club with the 5th biggest budget in the league. But I think what we pride ourselves on is that kind of togetherness, that cohesiveness. There's no denying that we've not got the squad size like your Rangers or your Celtics or your Glasgow Cities. They're bringing on players in the 60th minute of games that would probably walk into anybody else's starting 11. So we know that we don't have the squad sizes of other clubs or the budgets, but we probably have those special aspects, those things that you can't buy. The togetherness is, and I know every club will say this, but the togetherness is unbelievable, and the girls just go out week in, week out and fight for each other. I thought it was tremendous to see the same starting 11 from the Wednesday against Celtic, the Sunday against Rangers, put in the performance that they did. So yeah, hats off to the girls. But yeah, there is an excitement, but a contained excitement, because we do appreciate there's a lot of points to be won and lost at this stage still.
That excitement, togetherness, Craig. I'm watching you smile away. Is this taking you back to Stenhousemuir this time last season?
I can't imagine what that feels like, just as a player, just knowing that it's within touching distance and all you really do is all in your own hands. You just need to win every game between now and the end of the season.
That's all you need to do, Joelle. It's as easy as that.
Easier said than done.
It's just to be in that position, it's great, and just particularly now we're in the post-split fixtures when there are so many good teams within discussion who have all taken points each off each other over the course of the season. And Hibs, maybe prior to the Rangers game, a couple of shaky results like losing to Hearts, to bounce back from that to beat Rangers, who are on their day, a fabulous side, a high scoring side as well. It's great. It really feels like a lot of demons were slayed in that, and now you can just focus on and just assault that table and just win it. Easy as that.
Just win it, Joelle.
Just win it. That's it.
Just win it.
There's your team talk. There's your team talk sorted, guys.
Exactly. Demons slayed. Just win it. Just finally, Joelle, is it one of those that after a result like that, you wish you were playing a game this weekend? It's obviously Scottish Cup semi-finals. I know you've got a game on Wednesday, so it does sort of feel that soon, but the girls sort of itching to get back this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously the cup weekends just kind of reiterate that we're not in the competition any longer. So that's very disappointing. But I think for us, it's that silver lining of spoke about a smaller squad. This week gives us an opportunity to reset, refresh, and get ready for the midweek game against Motherwell on Wednesday. So yeah, disappointed not to be involved this weekend, but there are some silver linings that we can hopefully benefit from in the next 5 games.
Yeah, look forward to getting you on next Thursday after a win next Wednesday, and you'll still be as diplomatic as ever with one game fewer to go. But that is all we've got time for this morning. My many thanks go to Craig Telfer and Joelle Murray, and thank you for listening. Remember, we'll be here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast every morning bright and early, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. But for now though, bye bye.
On BBC Sounds, from life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated,
they said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
He caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.